Hey everyone, I'm super excited that we get to dive in today and talk about something that kind of feels hit or miss for most people. I know it did for me for nearly a decade, and that is branding. Now, I have a question for you as you're watching this or listening to this. Have you ever kind of felt like, I just feel like my branding isn't right. My logo doesn't feel like me. My brand voice isn't quite right. Maybe you saw some colors you liked, but you're like, this just isn't quite hitting the way I expected it to. Apparently, this is a pretty common thing. I know I went through this for a super long time. So today we have with us Angela Knox of the Divine Group. She is wonderful. Angela, I'm so excited you're here as a brand specialist, and let's dive on in.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to be clear about something real fast. So, you're incredible at branding, photography, marketing, strategies. Should I go on and on? No, but you're really and truly all encompassing a brand strategist. Would you say that's true?
I mean, that's such a nice thing to say, but yes, I mean, I think about it, it's like, yeah, own your talents. Yes, I kind of have been in a lot of different fields, so it kind of all stems
Yeah.
together and it feels like it makes a lot of sense. It's very cohesive.
Yes. Did you start with branding before you went into the entire thing of like photography and marketing, or what was like your jump off point right there?
Yeah, photography is where I started. I
Oh,
did
yeah.
weddings and then I started with entrepreneurs and branding. And then as a brand photographer, I had to learn about branding. And then it just became so cool and I nerded out about it. And then people be like, great, now I need marketing help. And they're so connected. But I truly believe, kind of like in my journey and the journey with most clients, I tell people branding needs to come before marketing so that you're actually like putting the right stuff out there. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
could just be saying a lot of things without any of
And I think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people who are listening along because sometimes we think of branding and we only think of one element, whether it's logos or
it.
fonts. There's so much more that goes into branding. When you think branding, what all comes to mind?
I mean, I literally think about your brand as a person, right? So, like, if it was a
Ooh.
living, breathing thing, it
Yeah.
would be moving around. So, like, what is it wearing? What does its hair look like? How does it speak? How does it hold its body, right? Like, how does your avatar, where does it go? Like, I almost sometimes like to
Hmm.
think about like the high school stereotypes,
Yeah.
like the jocks. They all hung out at that table and they kind of wore those
Yeah.
things and they said the same things and they took the same classes versus like the art geeks, which I was totally part of. And so like there's your brand's a person and every single thing, the smell of the person, the way they talk, we need to pay attention to that.
And it's interesting. I love that you brought that up. I've never thought of it as a person, but especially when you're a person at the front of your brand, every single thing matters, doesn't it? Into like this grand picture. It all plays into this grand picture of here's who I am and here's who my brand is, or here's who I am rather as the avatar of my brand.
Mhm.
You said something big there, and I think this is key. I struggled with this for a really long time. You see across the board, there are a lot of differences between someone's like brand avatar. This is how I show up in the business versus who they are as people, right?
Yes, and I mean, we work with a
Yeah.
lot of product brands too, and it's like, okay, how do you take your product and turn it into maybe one or several people who become your like brand avatar, right? Like, so yeah, you have to think about it like maybe, yeah, maybe you're really infused into it, and maybe it is 100% you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But there can be some separation, and that's okay. And those are boundaries that you have to create.
I want to highlight that for anyone who's paying attention. This is really, really big. If you weren't paying attention, pay attention now, moving forward, because for the longest time, I struggled with this concept of like, yes, I am my brand, and I'm also different outside of it. And I think sometimes people, yeah, assume like, oh, these are the colors I have to pick because these are my favorite colors or what I wear. Let's talk a little bit about colors just to start because it's so fun.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. And I know you and I have geeked out about this
Oh, yeah.
before, but like one of the ways that we really see brands is through the seasonality. And just like, Minnesota where we live has four seasons, these have four seasons.
Yeah.
So I always start with brand message because I feel like without like you could pick colors like anytime, right? You can pick pretty colors, but if you want them to really like hit the heart of your brand, we have to start with the message.
Yeah.
So we start with that message and then come into the seasonality. And what I really like about this method is that it just helps you kind of create a mood for your
Yeah.
brand and making sure that it resonates with the right people. So
Yeah. Yes.
there are 4 seasons, right? Just like here. And like if we talk about spring brands are
Hmm.
bright, they're shiny, they're sunny, they're fun, they're vibrant in both color and
Hmm.
personality, right? So like
Ooh, I love that.
if that's
Yes.
how you're showing up and you're like a
Yeah.
fun, like loving, silly person, then yeah, maybe you want to stick to that kind of color palette.
Yes. I want to share this because this is big. When I first started my brand, and this is not on the brand, the graphic designers or brand strategists I brought in at the time, I was like, no, we are navy blue and gold. Like that's what we're doing because these are my favorite colors right now. It was like the time when chevrons were still in, the chevron skirts and necklaces. And I was like, this is what we're doing. And I carried that on for 10 years, not realizing my brand wasn't reflecting how I show up in the business. How common do you think this is for most business owners out there?
It is pretty common. I mean, it's one of those things that sometimes becomes an afterthought because one, we're all really busy. And two, a lot of times what happens is we start to see success and then we start to almost grow to a point where it's like, okay, my brand doesn't fit me, but I'm too busy to deal with that.
Yes.
Right. And that's
Yes.
maybe where you were at, where it's like it grew a
Mhm.
lot and it was like, okay, this might not be me anymore, but guess what? Like, I don't have a problem with getting people in the door. So,
Right. So you just keep, you almost keep
yeah.
moving just out of like, the first couple of years of business is sometimes survival. So you're
Yes.
like, we've got some colors, we're moving, like, let's keep
Yes.
going.
Mhm.
Um, I will say one thing that you highlighted is that this is like one of the most important things. We've talked about this so much. Like, start here before you go into marketing. And I can't stress that enough because everything becomes easier when you feel good about the colors and the
Mhm.
fonts and the things that are showing
Mhm.
up. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see, Angela, with people? The reasons that they feel like not aligned or not in love with their colors, or maybe they're not attracting the people they should be when it comes to colors and fonts and the
Mhm.
externals of their brand.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. Like
Mhm.
a lot of times when people work with us, they'll be like, wow, I really feel like like a real business now. Like I feel like everything feels so aligned. And it's because we do dig into that process. And I
Key.
challenge people to dig into the process. Really start with like, who are you speaking to? Is it really the same person as you? Right. And if it's not, great. We need to dig into their routines, their habit patterns, their psychology. What do they do during the day? What troubles them? What keeps them awake at night? What lights them up? Right. You have to kind of almost like create this person or like build them from like the inside out, in
Yes.
my opinion.
I agree with this. And I think this is a place where it almost like when we move into the concept of brand voice and nailing down kind of that next level messaging, a lot of people don't know what it is their person is crying about. I see that a lot. They have these ideas like they're crying because they don't have systems. No, that's not what they're crying about. They're crying because everything feels like chaos. They're not
Mhm.
crying because they're like, I need an SOP right now. Not most of the time, at least. Brand voice, let's talk about it. This is a tricky and complicated and also it's so rewarding when you nail it. Brand voice, tell me a little bit about it, especially for people listening.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, if you think about talking to someone or like reading something they wrote, right? Your brand voice encompasses all those things that people are going to ingest. And even if you're showing up on video, the way you speak, the way you hold yourself is going to move into that brand voice, right? Like if I talked in a British accent, that would be totally different, right? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's not only the words you use, I also tell people, especially like when we're writing content, it's
Mhm.
about like how you write it. Do you use capitalization? Do you use dot dot dots? Are you excited and writing in all caps in some moments, right? Are you very lighthearted and very concise? Like it all has to do with it. So getting really clear about like how you want to speak to people. I almost like to start from the opposite. How does the avatar that you are creating, how would they speak, right? What words
Yeah.
would they use? Would they speak fast? Would they speak in a high tone, low tone? What does their
Mhm.
everyday sound like? And when you get clear on that, it makes content creation, marketing in general so much easier because
Yes.
you have established how they sound and you can use adjectives to describe it.
I do think too, a lot of people, especially if they come from a corporate or just in general a working background in any way, their voice was almost shaped by their past environments. Like, this is how we
Yep.
talk in corporate. Do you find that some people kind of struggle with like breaking that formality or rigidity?
Absolutely. And I think it's
Yeah,
generational too. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I grew up in the generation of we hit the spacer 2 times. So like changing that has been really weird and hard, just like it's like a habit. So I think a lot of people just haven't really broken that kind of barrier of like, we grew up with like without any AI. We grew up with like, reading books and like, what was that called? The ALS or whatever of like how to like it we can break rules now, and
Yeah.
it actually can sometimes help to break those grammatical rules and whatnot for your brand voice. And some people just
Mhm.
haven't accepted that yet, and that's totally fine, but it will hold back personality.
Yeah, I'm actually a big believer, like especially now with so much AI, that if there's a typo, it's okay because it shows just a human
Yeah,
element
you
to
actually
things.
did the
Yeah.
work. You
Yeah.
wrote
What a
it.
wild concept, right? Okay, so real fast, whether you are listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, I've actually linked above or beneath or in the show notes of this piece of content, this incredible interview. This is so fun. Um, for Angela's brand voice cheat sheet, it's totally free. You can check that out in the show notes or in the bio. Okay, so when it comes to brand voice, what have you seen? Oh, we've talked a lot about how AI is playing a part, but what are you seeing in terms of trends? Are you seeing business owners actually kind of getting further away from where they need to move? Like, how is that looking?
Yeah, I mean, the introduction of AI has been both a blessing and a curse, right? I feel like it's an amazing tool when you use it correctly.
Hmm.
But we also can't just be lazy and be like, I'm gonna let this make everything up for me because you can tell real easy,
Yep.
right? Like, and
Every
it's
single
like,
time.
yeah, it's so obvious and it like you can tell the patterns of it and whatnot. So I think a lot of times we're like, I'm busy, I'm just gonna throw something up. And it's like, yeah, you can do that, but are you really learning about how to attract the right people that way? And
Yeah.
you're gonna turn a lot of people off, to be honest, like that's just kind
Hmm.
of how it is. And I feel like it's going to become so flooded eventually with the
Uh-huh.
same kind of like emojis and content structure that people are just going to be like, screw this, it's AI, I'm not even looking.
I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but you actually have a fantastic cheat sheet with prompts for how to make AI sound human, right?
Yeah, the actual brand voice cheat sheet will help with that too, but I do have another one completely free again, 7 AI prompts that will make your brand more human that help kind of dig into that. And then you can feed it into AI if you need help. And then you can kind of learn a bit about your voice and see if, hey, I like this voice. Now you can start writing in it.
Yes. So we'll link to that one as well because it's relevant to the time we it's what we ended up talking about. Oops. But you guys can grab those above or beneath this video or podcast episode. Now, one last question I have for you is, do you see any major trends in branding as a whole? Like, is there something that's changing in the industry? And if there's not, that's totally cool too.
I think what's cool nowadays is with like Canva and stuff like that is it's giving business owners a lot more accessibility
Mhm.
to kind of have pre-branded things done for them, which
Yeah.
can be really cool and it can help you kind of get an idea of where you want to start. So I think that's a great tool for people and you
Yeah.
can kind of tell. I think the trend that you'll start to see is like things look a little similar for a lot of people. They're using the same templates, things like that. You can kind of tell when a brand does things themselves, and you can
Yeah.
tell the difference when a brand has worked with a professional. So I think
Absolutely.
that's just the trend that we're seeing. It's like you can kind of tell when AI or when Canva has helped you versus when somebody else has. And I
Mhm.
mean, again, I tell people like if you're starting your business with nothing, use these tools. That's what they're there for. But when
Yes.
you can afford to invest and have someone else get in your head and take it over, you'll start to see an elevated look that again, it's just it's one of a kind. Your brand becomes one of a kind.
I love that. Now, I want to say this real fast. If I were starting my business over again, maybe after I got my first couple sales or my first client, I would have worked with Angela. I didn't know you then, but I would have worked with Angela because of that concept of making sure that you're clear on who your brand is almost as an avatar and understanding the way that they look and show up. That would have influenced so many things from the very beginning. So, Angela, where can people who are like, that's exactly what I need, give me my season, give me this personality, let's work on this together, where can they learn more about the Divine Group?
Yeah, our website's thedivinegroup.co, and
Mm-hmm.
divine is spelled D-I-V-I. I always see people spelling it D-E-V. But yeah, thedivinegroup.co is where you can find us online, and then on Instagram, the Divine Group MN. We're all over social media. So
I
yeah,
love this so much. Angela, thank you so much for joining me.
thank you.
And
So
we'll
fun.
we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.